Welcome to another video from Dr. Lock. What we have on the bench here is a Lane automatic dead latch, and what I'll do is I thought we'd go over it and have a look at it and see how it's rekeyable. Gonna need a follower, a pair of tweezers, and a small Phillips head screwdriver. Alright, so I took it off the door and I put a 001 in its place, and I'll just basically lay it all out for you. It wasn't the best lock on the door, it might actually be somewhat broken, but we'll find out soon enough. They're the old 001 parts. The metal wooden frame keeper, we'll just pop that aside. And we've got some screws, so let's see what we got here. Alright, so we've got a rim cylinder from the front. We've got a mounting backing plate, and then we have the lock itself. And it looks like the actual cylinder has come out. Normally, I wouldn't expect it to be able to come out so easily, so perhaps this lock is actually broken. We'll have to have a closer look and see what's going on with that. That might be the way it is, but in my recall of rekeying these, I believe I have had to dismantle this before. So that's going to be interesting. Alright, so from this side of the door, you turn the big knob. Let's get that out. Turn the big knob left or right. It's got a switch here. Is this one broken? Shouldn't be. Yeah. So that switch is actually jammed. Alright, what's going on here? Let's move this forward, backwards. Okay, so basically, normally you would move this knob backwards, forwards, and it would allow you to unlock like so. When the actual door is at rest, this little triangle is pushed down, and this one becomes solid so that you can't shim a credit card past it. If you wanted to turn this lock off, you would turn it all the way and you would push this button, which would depress the latch like so, and then that would keep it in the off position. This lock does look very similar to the older style 001s, but is it suitable for front doors? It's not. Is it fire rated? No, it's not. So it's pretty much just a house lock. Automatic dead latch, because when it slams closed, it's actually locked. You don't need to put the key back in to relock it. The cylinder on the inside, as you can see, it's a simple cylinder with probably about 4 pins in it in line, and takes a LW4 key or C4 key. And they've had keys made at Bunnings, so let's see if that works or doesn't work. Probably won't work too well. Oh, it actually works. So that's the inside cylinder. The back of it is different to any other type of cylinder, so it's not like you can get a replacement cam or a replacement cylinder for this type thing. You've got to use the parts that the lock came with. We have this sleeve here, which has a little bit of a half moon in there, and as this rotates, this will rotate this part and allowing the lock to become double locked. Now on this side of the fence you've got like I guess like a figure 8 where the back of the tailpiece will come through, and that will actually start working that lump in the middle, which will in turn work the latch. Alright, so when it would be on the door, it's a nice piece, when it would be on the door you would see it like this, and the cylinder would be able to marry up with that. The actual cylinder itself, if you see here, nothing special. This is a housing with the cylinder that slides in and then the screw holding it on top. You could get away with using some sort of different cylinder, but generally speaking this is pretty much, for this particular lock. You could use a standard 201 cylinder, there'd be no problems there, but as far as reusing a different type of PD cylinder or something, that might not be really an option. It's possible, but maybe not. So it looks very similar to a PD, but it has the horseshoe circlip on the back. So there's a possibility you could use some sort of PD with a little bit of modification. The outer ring and rose is very straightforward standard. It looks to be a slightly larger size than normal, so once again, if you're missing a part, it's not like you can go just pick up one of your standard 201 cylinders and do that. The case screws here, as you can see, are quite long. So the way they work is that from this side here, you would put your cylinder from the front, you'll put your plate on the back, you would grab your cylinder retaining screws, which not here, or this might be one of them. You would come through like this, line up the tail piece through there, tighten those ones up, and then that would tighten the front cylinder to the door and clamp it on to this backing plate. Once you've got your 2 cylinder screws in, then you would go through with your 4 wooden screws and attach them to the door. I've probably got one left. There you go. Just like so. On most of these type of locks, they actually need to be quite flush here. As you can see, the mechanism slides backwards and forwards, so having a screw up on an angle and things can cause you quite a little bit of difficulty. So always make sure they're nice and flush. Once you've got that on the door, then it would be a simple matter of putting the lock over the mounting plate and coming through with these really long retaining screws and just tightening it up. Bang, bang, bang. Okay, so since we've come this far, and this is going into the metal recycling, let's pull it apart and see what's happening. Let's see what this mechanism's all about. So yeah, to change common in the past, I'm pretty sure I've had to dismantle these. Whether or not that was the right or wrong way to do it, I don't know, because we don't do a lot of these. I probably do about one of these, two of these a year. That's how kind of rare they are to see on a job. I don't think they sell them much anymore. So we've got special type of screws here, holding on this slide action. Two big springs at the back to push it forward again, and there you go. So I must say, removing the whole mechanism with just two screws on either side is quite good. When I compare it to the old-fashioned 001s, which are around in the 90s, I would say this is a superior design because you can just remove the whole mechanism to get to what you need to get to. The springs on the back look fine, and once again, if one goes, just pull it out and drop another one in. They look quite chunky. This part of the mechanism is all encased in one big bit of die cast, which I think is quite good because if it breaks, then you can just swap it out or swap the whole lock. As were some of the other ones, when you see all the springs and things, people start modifying it and then it's never quite the same. Having it as a preset item, yeah, it makes it harder to actually repair, but when there's a fault with it, then you can say, right, it's faulty, swap it out. So here's our dead latching function. That gets pushed in and then this becomes solid. And that seems to be working. A lot of grease in it, but. And we've got two internal springs in there as well. We've still got spring pressure on that. Interesting. Looks like this part slides backwards and forwards as well. Most of the time it's the handle that does the pulling back of the actual lock. Now I'm looking here, there's some sort of busted up spring in there, so I know we're not that's what I believe we should have been. This boomerang should have been kept under there and spring loaded. That's most likely half of our problem. This little part here to hold back the latch is nothing but a slide. And we've got some loose screws here. Maybe this could have been our problem from the start. And off memory, a ball bearing, a spring and a ball bearing is what we should be looking for here. Okay, we got a spring, that's all we got. So looks like this is definitely gone to God. So obviously this would go in here and you would get some sort of sliding backwards and forwards fashion. It would be held underneath this part here, so it can't move, if you can see that. And then that would move, rotate. And what that should actually do is stop the actual mechanism from being able to be pulled back. So interesting. Interesting, completely different design to what other manufacturers do. Okay, so just looking at this here, this would need to push some part in between these two circles. So this one here with this lump would be pushing some part in between these two circles, making this handle rigid. And when it retracts, then it would be able to be turned. So yeah, that's what else we got? We've got a plate on the back here, some sort of plastic plate. Nicely machined how it slides in the back there. That's a nice bit of engineering. The two screws on the side is a nice bit of engineering. This little trigger here to hold the latch back, that's simple and has been on latches for donkey's years. The actual rotating of the knob and having a little part that comes out to break the sort of diameter circle and lock it in is very common for dead latches too. So yeah, this is a design you probably won't see too often because there's less and less of them around there now. And this little part here, that might have actually been the little part that we're talking about that does all of that. Yep, looks like it is. So if that was out, that tells me that somebody has been playing Mr. Locksmith. And that's possibly why. Where's that spring gone? It's possibly why it was playing up in the first place. Okay, I think that spring's gone. Anyway, we've identified that part. Okay, so that goes in there, that gets pushed up. We have our part here that lines up perfectly. Now that would be spring loaded, so if it was to be try to be pushed down, it would push back. So that would keep this knob from turning, as we speculated. And then when you want to turn without it, it would be like so. Okay, the Lane automatic dead latch. Not a great lock. I'm not really a fan of it compared to the Lockwood. The Lockwood I find, you know, we've been using it for so long, we know it a lot better. But all the same, it's okay for a cheap automatic dead latch when you don't want to pay Lockwood prices. For that reason, I think it's quite reasonable. The mechanism inside is doing its job. It's probably got just as much strength as any other night latch or automatic dead latch, because it all relies on the frame. It's never this part that gets really kicked off the door, it's always this part. So if this part is no good on the door, then it doesn't matter really what you've got on this side.